What's going on, family? We just want to come say thank you for your support. We've been seeing the likes, the shares, the subscriptions going up, right? We definitely want to be able to continue to do this. We definitely want to be able to make sure that we can provide quality content, the content that you need that's going to move the needle for your business, your family, and everybody in your ecosystem, right? So if you could do us a favor and share with a friend, right? Don't hold the information. Share it out. 2 or 3 people who you know need this information, and subscribe to the channel. That's how we get to keep the lights on, pay the bills, right? And it's a free thing. All you have to do is hit the subscribe button. It's real simple. It's like right there. Just subscribe. And so we're going to make sure that we, as a promise to you, we're going to make sure that our content continues to get better, develop more, and that we bring quality people to you and subjects.
That's right.
We appreciate y'all minding your biz. What's going on, y'all? It's another edition of Minding Your Biz. I'm your co-host, or one of your co-hosts, Dr. Blackwealth, and we got...
Hi, it's your girl, Miss Fabfinancial.
And we talking about inflation. How does it affect business, people? Is it real? Is it fake?
It's fake.
It's fake?
It ain't real.
Sound like a conspiracy theory. What's the
It's
conspiracy theory
manufactured.
around
It's like,
that?
no, I think it's a portion. A portion of it, I think, is manufactured.
From who?
Corporate companies to make more money.
That's an interesting perspective. Corporate companies to make more money.
Taking advantage of a situation.
So then what's... So not that they manufacture, they just taking advantage of the fact
Well, they
that
manufacture
inflation's high.
their, I feel like, okay, so the inflation, right? We'll talk about inflation and what that is. Out of the pandemic, right? There was 2 things happening at the same time, right? So there was a logistics issue, right, with getting goods and services to this country, right? Because the world at large was shut down, right? A lot of our stuff comes from China, right? And China was impacted heavily, closed down. And so the role of transportation throughout the world was impacted, right? So that means food, supplies, labor, primarily lumber for home sales, right? Home sales were increasing, but the homes itself is a supply and demand situation. There weren't a lot of homes on the market. There weren't a lot of homes being built. Construction companies became a little scared. Nobody knew what was going to happen. So they slowed down on building and production, so that left a bottleneck for buyers not to have as much inventory to buy. Prices went through the roof. The country also pumped in a lot of money during COVID, right, with the different COVID loans. So money was injected into the economy, which had a kind of supply and demand issue. So car sales, food, and homes were increasing. People were buying. Of course, we all know LVMH had record numbers, was the top company. People were buying luxury goods. So it seemed as if everything was going well, but because people were getting money. But when the dust settles, they realized that, wait a minute, this is not a thing. Our gas prices are still going up. Our companies are saying we got to go back to work. We don't have any more COVID relief. The government is not giving us any more money, but the interest rates are high. So the government has to do something to kind of slow down consumption and buyer spending, because people were getting priced out, gorged. There were like people overbidding houses for cash. Car sales were just through the roof, right? So the government through the Fed goes, well, we're going to increase interest rates. Right, is a little recap. Right, we're going to increase interest rates.
CNBC Live,
right?
y'all.
We're going to increase interest rates so that buying can slow down, right? So that pricing can come back down, because the Fed lends money to people or companies, and then they kind of what's a good way to the Fed puts a price on money for other companies and banks to borrow money or secure money, and then they give us lines of credit, loans, and that type of thing. And it increases that. So it slows people down and go, well, maybe I shouldn't now buy that car or house, because that same house in COVID that was $300,000 with the interest rates, now I can only afford a house for $250, but I'm gonna have to put out more money, and it's gonna cost me more at the end of the day. So people go, I'm not gonna buy, which is what they want, so that the prices could go down. So then it switches from a buyer's market. I mean, from a seller's market to a buyer's market.
Yeah, but what's happening is nothing slowed down. You got inflation rates are through the roof.
Well, home buying did slow. They did come back down because during COVID, they were trying to get me to sell my house for like $750,000, $800,000.
For sure, but
so pricing did come down.
But what's going to happen on that is, and I guess that's not in all areas.
Car prices did go down, but food went up.
You still got home prices that are through the roof, right?
Home prices are not through the roof. They came down.
I mean, so I seen a report yesterday where they was like, hey, it's some homes like in this is in the Nashville area and in the Houston area where homes like prior to COVID were $70,000, $100,000, 4,000 or so square feet, but they jumped up to $800,000, $1 million. So prices are kind of like all of them haven't really kind of decreased. But then you looking at the way that ADP pulled out the employment market, there are people still heavily. I think there's a lot of stuff that's happening that they really didn't expect to happen, and I think is still further pushing up the inflation rate because the construction industry and stuff are still hiring. There's no job losses being made there.
For sure.
And they expected that to happen. That's still on the rise. People are switching. Now it's summer. People are switching employment and getting different jobs, which is increasing pay. And so people are still people are still like spending. I think it's a after effect of COVID just from being shut down. But so inflation rates is an issue, especially from a business perspective, because we can't pull money. We can't get, the money at the rates and stuff that we want. But it's also not stopping spending from happening business or consumer side.
Well, it doesn't stop it, but it slows it down. And so, of course, typically during inflation, when consumers slow in spending, typically it's the discretionary things that take a hit first, right? The things that we don't really typically need, which is restaurants, outdoor dining, activities, vacations.
People are traveling more than ever, even with high plane rates.
Not an average. I mean, it's according
to CNBC.
Listen,
especially based off the ADP.
But inflation doesn't mean recession. So that's typically in a recession. Inflation just means that it's going to cost us more.
For sure.
To buy the things that we typically would buy at a higher cost, right? So it's to slow down the price gouging, right? Because when we talk about consumer goods and things that have increased, it was a restaurateur I was reading, and he was saying, pre-COVID and during COVID, like 50 pounds of oil or butter will cost him about $3 to $7. Now it's costing him $80. Mm-hmm. So then I go, well, why is that? It's not a supply chain issue. Mm-hmm. It's not getting stopped at the port. You're increasing the pricing for what reason? Right? Why?
But that would be based off the rate of the Fed. I would increase prices too. Because then you're losing as a business owner. If we don't increase prices, in a sense, we're all losing money, period.
And that's not because of the Fed. If I'm General Mills, which is the main issue that had the controversy through the issue, General Mills shrunk their size, their family size, all their portions. It was like all the General Mills family size cereals, right? It was like Doritos, Frito-Lays, right? All decrease the amount they give you, but increase the price, right? And the reasoning behind it wasn't, of course, the inflation or reason. They said it was a supply chain issue.
Right.
I said, oh, well, during COVID, we're out of COVID.
They recapturing them dollars that they lost.
Yeah, but that's disingenuous. That's corporate greed. That's not real inflation. But you still had, what did they, I'm seeing down the numbers now, I don't know off the top of my head. They still had it was like an increase from 2020 to 2023. It was like they still had a operating profit, a 10% operating profit from 21 to 23. So you're lying.
Who?
General Mills. So you can't say, well, I get it sometimes, because that's what happened too during the housing or the rental, right? The rental market here in Atlanta.
That's also a problem. That's what I'm saying. Those people are not buying, but then the rental rates
it's through the roof.
Is crazy.
Right. So then they said, well, rental pricing, now we have to keep up with the market rate. And so I get a little bit of that as a business owner. You want to be competitive, but when you're pricing yourself so far outside of the norm, then it creates a problem. Yeah. It creates a problem. I think that, when you say, hey, during COVID, we suffered a loss, but it shows that you were increasing by 9% every year, then that's disingenuous.
I mean, but then I think the problem with that too is you don't have a heavy force of Americans slowing up spending. I mean, because we talk about General Mills, that's mostly like food, so people still eating. And then when they raise,
I think they're taking advantage of that. And
they raise funding in certain programs because VA pay went up, which means that gotta mean that, I don't know for sure, but that gotta mean that public assistance went up as far as like food stamps and all that stuff. You
typically, okay, so
to kind of combat the inflation rates that they did have coming out of COVID.
Okay, so it says
everybody pay went up.
No, since the pandemic, grocery prices risen by 25%. Ain't nobody getting no 25% raise.
I mean, my raise is dollar for dollar.
My raise is going up maybe by 50 cents, 25 cents, maybe 3% to combat normal inflation. But we rose past 3%
I'm not talking about
inflation.
Employment.
Because you're saying people getting paid more money.
Right, but I'm saying not employment though.
The salary.
Funding, programs, government programs increase. It didn't increase dollar for dollar percentage. But like I'm saying VA, like when the interest rates was at its highest, they had passed that bill where I knew that the like VA people who get VA.
You saying pass the bill so the government was helping? Is that politics? Okay, all right.
Yeah. So when they passed the bill to increase inflation, to increase pay to combat inflation, to get people like, hey, we could try to fight this thing.
And what administration was that? Was that the Biden administration?
I don't know. VA. I don't think so. That was coming out of. I think that was right when Trump was coming out of office and Biden was going in. Yeah.
The Inflation Reduction Act? The Reduction Inflation Act?
No, but before when did they increase VA, the federal assistance? But basically what I'm saying is I'm thinking they got an increase in federal programming. So like VA, public assistance, food stamps, all that stuff increase. So you don't have a large population of people slowing down on spending. When
they increased the HUD vouchers.
VA.
That was in the Reduction Inflation Act from the Biden administration. I'm just saying. Somebody who don't like politics, don't think that people should vote. And you quoting a bill.
Well, this is before 23.
All right.
I don't know. I can't find it. But,
All right.
So, I don't know. It was like 2020, 2021, not 2020, but 2021, 2022, something like that. I think 2022. So, but yeah, so I'm saying, they increased the rates and the pay in relation to trying to combat inflation. But then you got businesses arguing that Powell still haven't dropped inflation rates, which is still putting a strain on a lot of stuff that businesses are trying to do. But I don't really see the effects of it being high on how it's really, really slowing stuff down because people are still in demand. Everything people are in demand for, they're still in demand for.
But it's
still got travel going no matter how much.
No, the main thing is housing. That's the main thing, housing and cars. During COVID.
So you think it's going to be a bubble that it like?
No, I think it needed to because it was so overinflated and out of whack.
If I'm looking to buy a house, should I wait because I'm thinking the market going to crash where I can get a house cheaper?
No.
Okay.
So during COVID, right, it was overinflated. The equity in the house, all that was overinflated because of the supply and demand.
Okay.
Again, they were trying to say people were saying they was going to buy my house.
Right.
For $750,000. Do you hear me?
Right.
Overinflated.
Right.
Now, after when they pushed the high interest rates, it started to normalize, right? Which, now if it was a recession, that means it would have been underwater, done. Everyone would have been losing equity, right? But it just normalized. It came down to probably a regular amount because the equity in my
Based
house
off where inflation was at during
pre-COVID, like what the natural escalation would be. Right. So now when I took someone out last week to look for homes, right, and I'm like, I see the incentives from the sellers. We're going to contribute $10,000 to closing costs. We're going to contribute $8,000 to closing costs. We'll give you a so-and-so due diligence, right, because they're not at the advantage. That's what they want, right? That's what the government wanted, to slow down so people can now buy with a conscience. I mean, people were buying houses, with no due diligence periods, over paying for homes. So I think if you want to buy a house, fall in love with the house and not the rate, because the rates fluctuate. You can always refinance your house, refinance the mortgage. But fall in love with the house, not the rate.
Yeah, but that's going to put a lot of people out because, so this guy had a good point, right? He was like, hey, I remember I mentioned, homes was worth 70, 100 grand, then they jump up to $800,000, $100,000. But then with most Americans...
outside of normal, COVID was abnormal.
I'm talking about right now. You got houses that used to be in the same, wherever they at right now, used to be worth... or was selling for 70, 80, somewhere around 100, something that was normal, we thought then, that are now at an all-time high between $800,000 to $1 million homes or $500,000 homes in that price range.
Right, depending on that area or neighborhood.
Depending on the area of the neighborhood that you're trying to go to, right? So with that being said, we're still in a place where most Americans, the national salary of America is somewhere around $30,000 to $40,000.
Right, and they can't afford to buy.
They can't afford to buy, and so it posed a good question because I was like, man, it makes a good point. I guess to your point of as far as squeezing out the middle class in a sense, because if most Americans are making somewhere between $30,000 to $40,000, that's poor. In my book, it's poor. I don't know if it's really poor, but that's poor. And that's a large chunk of your middle class. Right. If you don't have...
between 40 to about 75.
Right. And so if you don't have at least $1,000 to your name already, then where are you pulling money to put down even 3.5%, 4%, or
you
more?
Ain't at 3.5%.
That's what I'm saying. So you being classed out. So then, which is a problem that,
and then if you don't have public school, you got to pay for that private education with them vouchers. You really ain't going to have no money to buy no home.
Oh, Jesus. Y'all lead this Project 2025 stuff.
You're going to be renting for the rest of your life. There's going to be no ownership. The only thing you can do is rent. There will be no ownership. People wouldn't be able to afford it.
Yeah. Hey, it's happening because people's salaries are not going up. But I just don't like the use of hey, we losing wealth in a sense because.
But you are losing wealth. If most Americans, don't have a contingency plan, they do not have a savings. And this was happening when I was working for the banks. Less and less people were saving money.
But you can't be considered having wealth and generational wealth from just owning.
Wealth, absolutely. That's a part of wealth building. Outside of that, what's wealth building? It starts with home ownership. It starts with equity. It starts in ownership. Wealth is not owning a car. Yeah, it's owning something substantial.
But people own a home and they stop there at wealth.
But that's the start of it.
I'm not disagreeing, but your house that you live in, for me, I wouldn't consider that as part of your wealth play. If you had another home that you wasn't living in.
That's a part of it. That's how most Americans start acquiring wealth. The bare minimum is to buy a house, pay it off in 30 years so that my children can have wealth. And they also have an insurance policy. And they also have, there's other things attributed to that. But wealth starts with home ownership. Ownership of something. You got to own something. Now, if you own a home, own a land, a lake.
For sure. I mean, that's what
you got to own something.
But that's my point. It's the ownership in it, but not taking
air rights. You can buy air rights,
not taking
water rights,
your own home,
mineral rights.
So for sure. Right. I mean, building up wealth is ownership, right? But when I look at that, I know it's push, but I look at that and I remove your own home, because it's not like, it's a liability to you, especially if you still paying on the mortgage, right? And then even if for you to take advantage of it, you still got to go back to the banks to pull money out of there. Your own home should be excluded out of like your wealth picture in a sense.
Well, why? It definitely should be included.
Right, but it shouldn't be where you stop at. Most of us get homes and they stop at buying homes and they're like, oh, this is our wealth. But it's not, because you don't know what your kids is going to do, not going to do. Most Gen Z probably can't even afford to buy a house. So even if they get your home, most of them are not. Look at what we did. Most of the people are not taking up their parents' or grandparents' home. They selling them because they want to live wherever they want to live or do what they want to do. But that's still
giving them an option that if they didn't have a home, they wouldn't be able to do. So ownership, whether you appreciate it as the person behind you, whether you appreciate what your parents and grandparents did for you, is a different isolated situation. But what you do have is an option, because somebody left you something that you can leverage. You're not starting at 0. You're starting at least at 7 with a home. So I think with inflation, this fake inflation, I think it's a portion of it, right? So when we talk about home rates and ownership, inflation is the real thing. I think it's squeezing out the middle class. I think it leaves people to be more dependent in rental processes and programs.
I think it's pushing people to own more businesses.
All right.
You got to make more money.
Got to that part. Okay.
You got to make money. The inflation rates being where it's at.
They're going to open up tutors in schools because they ain't going to have no public school.
Well, they can do that too, but with inflation rates,
the people ain't gonna be able to afford it, Lord Jesus.
With inflation rates being where it's at, you have no choice but to look at ways and means for you to make money.
And people are it's an
that's
app
investments. That's you doing investing in stocks. That's owning a business. That's figuring out a way for you to bring in extra income, which is a business.
I do agree to a certain extent, right? Because where there is pain, there's an opportunity to expose and come up with a solution, right? Sure. That's out of any and everything. Where there is pain. And so when people start saying, well, I'm in pain, I cannot afford to buy the things that I want to buy, you got to look around you and go, well, what companies and things are coming into play? There's a company that I just got into called, what was that called? The company called Hire Car? No. What's the company called? Flex Car.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Flex Car, right? Coming out of pain where you could buy a car without putting no money down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Those things come out of a place of pain, right? There's a company called, I just found out about this, Zip, where they are basically extending you lines of credit to buy the stuff that you want. Right? In 4 payments. They send you a debit card. It's not on your credit report because that's an issue. Americans are like, we filing bankruptcy, our credit report. They have an issue with the credit bureaus, and because all of that is a mess. It's a problem. Yeah. This company called Zip says, okay, well, we're venture capitalists. We got money. We're going, based on your public profile and loose credit rating, we'll extend you a line of $1,000. We'll send you a credit card in a sense, like a line of credit. And you could buy whatever you want. Right? And you just have to pay us in 4 easy payments with a small surcharge. I looked at it and researched it, but that's coming out of pain.
For sure.
Because Americans and people can't buy at one time.
Right.
So then you owe them, and they keep extending it.
For sure. It's no different than banks and credits, but
it's not hitting your credit report, and it's not a high rate. I looked at it. I was like, oh, well, it's probably going to be predatory lending.
What are they doing to get money back?
What,
or how they
are, but small. I looked at it and it was like $7 per payment. Small payments.
Yeah.
So most people will go.
Do that math. $7
times 4 payments. So
yeah, but times how many people? A million people. That's
absolutely. But they're solving a problem out of the pain.
For sure.
And people go, because you could pay your.
But that's what I'm saying. I mean,
you could pay your utilities on there. You could buy groceries, gas, because they're giving you like a debit card.
Bottom line is inflation is high. Rates probably, in my mind, I know that rates are going to come down because there's push on Powell to drop the rates. I know he got a lot of pressure on them to be like, to every month that the Fed is meeting, that they looking at about how to drop these rates or somewhat this might be the new normal. At the end of the day, though, you got a couple choices that you could just sit there and make. We can woe here and
one of them is voting.
No,
include that in the solution. He's going to say start a business. Yes, he wants you to start a business, find a solution out of it, but vote too.
You can't vote your way out of inflation.
You got to do both.
The Fed ain't ran by the. All right. You got to figure out how to make money. And it boils down to starting a business, because anything you do outside of you working a job is just you being a business owner. But you got to figure out any ways for you to make.
It's gonna be all these chiefs. We ain't gonna have nothing. It's Lord Jesus.
But that's a good economy.
Is it
business to business, business to consumer?
Who's gonna work the business if everybody running a business?
Everybody ain't gonna run it though.
You keep telling the folks to start a business.
And how many people gonna do it? 0.5% of them. 0.5%.
So he just saying that. He just saying that.
No, okay. I think that's what you really should do. But 0.5% of y'all gonna do it, and the rest of y'all gonna hope and pray that Trump get in office to remove Jerome Powell, or not get in office and keep Powell, and you still complaining about how high cereal is, but you steady buying it. And you ain't doing nothing to build up a skill to make additional money.
All right.
You ain't going nowhere to seek further employment. You're still staying in the same position. That's why the national average of the salary is what, $40,000, and people got less than $1,000 in their savings.
All right. So guys,
what you gonna do? Inflation is up. You ain't got no choice but to make more money somewhere. Yeah, I would do it the same way they doing it. Stock market. You ain't gotta run nothing.
That's true.
You
definitely should invest, because I would be looking at Zip. I'll be looking at Flex. But that doesn't mean I have to start a business though. That means investing in diverting my funds.
You make money outside of your job is quote unquote for the larger definition.
I would go, well, I ain't gonna buy no more General Mills, but I'm gonna take the money that I would purchase on General Mills. And I would buy some stock in
That's what I'm saying. But when I say business, I'm just saying like generally the definition
I'm thinking
you making money outside
people to start
of your...
a business, get an LLC and register.
Everybody might not do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go right on Robinhood and Fidelity. Fidelity's good for research. And start to invest, but investing is you.
But one thing about inflation,
slice and dice that either.
One thing about inflation is it's cyclical, right? So sometimes you got to weather this storm. Yes, the rates are high. Inflation is a thing. Sure. It's going to cost you more. Your average, how you would typically run your home, it's going to cost you more. It's going to cost you more at the grocery store. The more to get gas. Yeah. The more to get your hair done, all that's gonna cost more, right? So you got to ride it out. You got to budget. Yeah. You got to tighten it up. It's gonna cost you more to eat out.
That's right.
And that's restaurants. Everything is costing you more
everywhere.
So what does that mean for you as Americans? You got to count your coins.
Yeah.
You got to figure out where you're going to spend your dollars, but ride it out, right?
Truth be told, though, I don't. It's a concern.
Invest. You can invest in something
for sure. Yeah. I think it's a concern, but. I think money is a concern. At the same time, I think because of what we went through COVID, that most people look at it now as like money's not the end all be all. Like if I want to go to Europe, wherever, do this, do that, I'm gonna figure out a way to do it. You know what I mean? Like people are going after what they want to do. You know what I mean? Like, even though spending slowed down, but in the same token, like people still
spending probably should slow down. I'm a business owner, so I get that why people want to consume, because that's how you build your business.
Yeah.
But I think Americans need to budget more, and they need to save more and put their money into wealth building instruments.
Yeah.
And not buy more shit off Temu and Shein.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I definitely agree.
Because
you know what I'm
the inflation ain't hitting Shein. It's still $1.80 for like 8 pair of socks. Do you need any more socks?
I'm trying to tell you. You always need socks because they be lost. Where the other one went?
Find the socks.
Where the other one went? But somebody ate it. I mean, like, the kids.
Don't buy no more shit from Temu and
I just
Shein.
bought socks.
That's why the landfills are filled now with extra shit. Take that money and put it in the stock.
I definitely agree. I just think that most people consume
it smell weird. It got like chemical stuff on it. It ain't even good for your skin and stuff. And it's hard because it's so cheap. So
you ain't gonna stop.
We got a problem with buying shit.
We probably do. But that's probably the world. It ain't America. That's everybody.
But everybody want to come here. We spend more and buy more shit than anybody. Them Europeans, they be keeping stuff forever. They be like, I had these shoes since take these good pair of leather shoes. Americans are in the fast fashion. We gonna buy a new this, a new that, and we throwing it in the trash. We don't care, and then we don't even care where the trash go.
Yeah.
It's floating in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and be like, why is the fish?
We just comfortable.
That's a different story, y'all. We ain't even gonna go down that road.
But I mean, listen, inflation is up there. I think a little bit what you said, like businesses are taking advantage of it. But if I was a business owner, why wouldn't you take advantage of it? If the people still gonna buy.
That's the soul. We can't do that.
You're not
gonna have any consumers to buy if you keep pricing.
Always have consumers.
Oh,
they making babies every day. Everybody
not
gonna
to
be
afford it. If you keep pricing it out, who's gonna afford it?
For what?
For your service or product.
Oh, hey. Fortunately for us, we in a needs-based business. Everybody gotta file taxes. I don't know about y'all, but everybody gotta file taxes. If you running a business and starting a business, somebody gotta see about this money.
Over here, we have not increased our prices in like 10 years. I don't know if that's a dumb move or a smart move, but we have, through inflation, kept the same pricing.
For sure. I have too. I don't even know if I would. Now, our monthly services, I would. But the annual taxes.
So as we talk about inflation, it affects us too, right? Because everything around us is increasing. But sometimes your services stay the same.
Something to think about. Y'all let us know what y'all think. Inflation rate, business. Is it a sham? Is it a
scam? Is it a scam or a sham?
Yeah. Tell us what you think. So we'll see y'all in the next episode.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Hit that bell. We'll see y'all when we see you.
And they got to mind their biz.
That's right.